Info.
All right, 11 minutes going past the hour of 5. Time is never our friend. I need to start by saying I'm really sorry. I wish we had more time with the commissioner so we could, take a whole lot of the questions that were, sent, or all of the calls that were coming in. But it's time for us to switch conversations. It's time for us to look at something I deem as important as some of the issues that we discuss here on Hard Facts. Yes, this is Hard Facts with Kalada Kurubatubo on 92.3 Nigerian Info, and it's my pleasure. I have a guest. I'll introduce him shortly, but first let me tell you what we want to talk about. We want to talk about the 22 nominations to the Supreme Court to fill the vacancies therein. 11 vacancies, so we've got 22 nominations, and out of the 22 there are 11 priorities and there are 11 reserves. These nominations are coming from all of the geopolitical zones that are not currently present at the Supreme Court. However, it's come to my notice that Nigerians are not as passionate as they would have been if it were to be the general elections, if it were to be elections for governorship positions or election for the office of the president or even for any legislative position. However, we have come to realize that the development that we seek is not just on the table of the executive. Yes, majority of the work is on the table of the executive. However, we have 3 arms of government, and it is my opinion that as much as you're interested in the activities of the executive arm of government at any of the levels, you also need to be very much interested in the legislative and the judicial arms of government. Was it not 2 days ago, there was a judgment from the Supreme Court in the UK stopping the Prime Minister and his cabinet from going ahead with their Rwanda plan. Now, imagine, that would have become a major policy of government, but the Supreme Court had a say in how that policy would go, if it would exist or not. And that's to tell you that the judges or justices, whichever the case is, have a major role to play in how Nigeria develops or how Nigeria travels. I mean, recently, even just yesterday, a lot of people have been complaining. A lot of people have been saying a thing or two about the judicial system. And that's why I have called someone that is very, familiar on the show, When we have legal issues, we usually call him. He's a professor of law at River State University. I'm talking about Barrister Ritchard Nwokocha. Welcome, Barrister. It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you, and good evening, Nigeria.
All right. So let's start with the very first, the basic question. How do we get justices of the Supreme Court? What are the processes of getting justices? Can you, tutor us on that one, please?
Well, that is a constitutional procedure for constituting members of the judiciary or the court of the judiciary. You have for the federal court the Federal Judicial Service Commission, and you have for the state court the State Judicial Service Commission. These commissions come up with names. Appointment is responsibility of the chief executive at both ends, yes, but the Judicial Service Commission sort names and present the names that the government is putting forward for appointment. Those names are submitted to the National Judicial Council, the NJC, which will screen them and then make final recommendation to the chief executive as to suitability of the persons that are recommended for appointment. And the chief executive, in this case, we're talking about the Supreme Court and the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, will forward those names to Senate for confirmation by Senate before they will be sworn in. So the Federal Judicial Service Commission in this case is the institution through which the federal government brings up names, the NJC, for screening, out of which NJC will recommend the ones for appointment.
So sorry, let me get you correctly. Out of the 22 names now, the NJC will recommend some of them, 11 of them to.
The Supreme Court has on a full scale 21 justices, so it has 10 left now, meaning that it's about to get 11 appointments. Out of these 22 names forwarded to the NJC, the NJC will recommend 11 for appointment to the president.
Okay, all right. So the 22 names, according to reports, were got from the Court of Appeal. Is it compulsory that they must come from the Court of Appeal? Because I've seen certain articles today where some people are arguing that they could have brought some from the academia, they could have brought some from senior advocates, that's the NBA. What's your argument on that one?
Well, that's a matter of law, and Section 231 of the Constitution, which regulates that issue, says both the Chief Justice of the nation and justices of the Supreme Court have to be persons who have been called to the Nigerian bar and who have been so called for a period not less than 15 years. So the only qualification that the law gives is that a person nominated must be a person who is a lawyer of not less than 50 years standing.
Okay, not less than 50 years. Sorry.
That's why you will see those articles. Beyond seeing the articles, we have had cases. Someone like Professor Taslim Elias got to the Supreme Court. We've had cases where persons have been appointed directly, even as Chief Justice of Nigeria, without having been on the bench ever. We've had that from the academia and others. So the law does not restrict it to any particular area. But I guess you will agree that, considering that judgeship is a area to which we appoint what is supposed to be the best from the legal profession, it will be understandable that where things are working properly, persons who have been so appointed to the High Court, who have proven themselves at the High Court to merit elevation to the Court of Appeal, we stand in a very good position to be identified as persons who are proving materials to taken at the Supreme Court. So when you consider that career angle, there is this possible argument that you have men who have proven themselves and you are picking from such men.
Okay.
That's not to say that picking from outside is wrong. No, you also have men who have proven themselves in the profession, some of whom are senior advocates, some of whom are not senior advocates, some of whom are in the academia, and all of that, whom you will say are good enough material to go to that position. But the law requires only that such a person must be a lawyer of not less than 15 years standing.
Not less than... sorry, Prof. Sorry, Prof. I need to be clear on it. So the only requirement is that it must be a lawyer who has 50 years experience. 15 or 50?
15.
15. Okay, 1-5. I just wanted to confirm that. All right. Yes. All right. Thank you. Yes. So now let's look at other issues. Now, 22 names from Court of Appeal, according to reports. In the past few years, would you say the Court of Appeal has lived up to its responsibilities? Would you say some of the judgments that have come out of the Court of Appeal worthy of note for such you've called it career growth, for such career growth to the Supreme Court?
The Nigerian judiciary is not as strong, watertight, and I'm looking for the other right expression with which to describe it. It's not as it used to be in the past.
Okay.
I wouldn't say we are in our best days in the judiciary, but we have to choose some human beings who are existing now. There have been disturbing judgments from the Court of Appeal. There have also been the case of conflicting statements from the Court of Appeal that did not show a lot of tidiness and responsibility. There have been outrightly absurd judgments from the Court of Appeal. When you consider all of this, you will wonder whether it is safe to pick off the thing. But I'm going to focus on those who have served, and perhaps among those names, we will not find those who are giving those absurd judgments and who are taking those acts that have run down the judiciary. So I would want to think that they must have chosen the best of what is available at the Court of Appeal.
Could they have listened to Nigerians? Or should we have a process where Nigerians can have a say? Now, you've said, we can't say the Court of Appeal has done very nicely recently, up to 100% capacity. But, we can say, okay, fine, they've done a fair enough job. And even though we can't say they've done 100%, we're still allowing those same people go to the Supreme Court. Is it not furthering the disbelief in our judicial system, by Nigerians?
Well, if the Court of Appeal has not done 100%, the point is also made that it is not all the justices of the Court of Appeal that have been part of that less than noble act that has been established from that court. So I think if you are looking for proven materials, you can sift even from that less than 100%. You can sift out those who have not cloaked themselves with that lack of nobility that has come to characterize our impressions about that court. So you can pick from the good ones that are not involved in those things about which Nigerians are complaining. I guess that is what the federal government wants to do. Again, if it is that way, investigations will be easier. You look at the person's track record from High Court to the Court of Appeal, and you may be able to establish the person's character. That will look to them, to the federal government, a bit faster than having to investigate a person who has not been involved in justice position, since we are talking of the highest court of the land.
All right.
So we find it an easier path to take.
We'll go for a quick commercial break here, but when I come back, we'll look at the Supreme Court, and yet again, this time from the angle of the people and the NBA. Should they have an influence? We'll also look at those judges. Do they have ideologies? Because if you look at the United States courts, some are conservative, some are, how it is over there. So, do we have these kind of ideologies in the country? I'd like to hear from you when we come back from the commercial break. All right, thank you. Nigeria Info. We're focusing our lights, antenna, our our eyes on the judiciary today, and we're looking at the 22 nominations for the vacant positions at the Supreme Court. I've got a professor of law at River State University, Barrister Ritchard Nwokocha. Thank you very much for being a part of the show.
Thank you.
All right. So before we went on that break, I said I was going to ask you how the NBA and how the Nigerian populace can be a part of this process. You said first there is the nomination of names sent to the NJC, and then the NJC will select and then send to the president for appointment. Can the NBA be a part of the process? Remember, it's the Nigeria's Bar Association, and I do believe that at some point the judges were or are still a part of that association. I stand to be corrected. I do not know how it works. But then again, shouldn't they be a part of it? And if these people are going to be making laws for Nigerians or on behalf of Nigerians, should Nigerians not have a say as to who sits on the bench?
Well, first, let's say, I'm sure that's what you meant to say. If we are going to be having final determination of what the law is,
yes.
So, should the NBA be part of it? I think, in my opinion, yes. But again, if you are talking of that highest court, NBA participation at the moment has been limited to whether there is any complaint about a name, which is open to the general public to react to. Now you've had 22 names publicized as being nominated. If there are any issues you have with any of them, including the profession NBA, this is the time to get to, after all, judges preside over matters that are presented by members of the Nigerian Bar Association. Are they part of the NBA? I'm afraid we cannot really say they are. They are drawn from the NBA, but once they are appointed, are not quite anymore reflected by the NBA. You recall also that for those of them at the higher bench, which is from the High Court down to the Supreme Court, once they reach that position, whether it is voluntary retirement or removal or any manner of living, they can't go back to practicing the law. They can't go back to appearing in court. So I think we can say in a safe manner that they are no longer part of NBA because they are not regulated by the NBA. They are drawn from the legal profession yet.
Oh my. We have a network issue yet again. All right. I will quickly start taking calls. Let's take your calls, and then I get back to my guests so we can wrap up or round off the conversation. 0817-923-0002 and 0817-923-0003. And the question I have for you is, why are we not as passionate as we are when it comes to general elections in matters that pertain to who becomes what at the judiciary? Can you tell me why you think we are not as passionate as we normally would be if it were to be the general elections when it comes to the judiciary, I beg your pardon, and who becomes a judge in whatever level at the court? I do think if we can begin following the process from the get-go, from the initial stages, then it will help us, to be able to define what is and what shouldn't be. All right, so 0817-923-0002 and 0817-923-0003. Yes, welcome back, Prof. All right. So sorry, the network terrible. You were saying before you went. You were cut off.
Yes. So even though they are not, I was saying even though they are not regulated by the NBA, input of the NBA will be useful in the course of selection, because NBA is still in a position to comment on their suitability, since the practice of their career is done in matters in which NBA members are the lawyers or are the persons presenting those matters. So they will be in position to make comments. But that's where NBA participation has been limited to right now. Should the public be involved?
But before sorry,
level of,
Prof,
if they have complaints against person. Yes.
Before we get to the public, you've said NBA has been limited to, just complaining about judges nominated. But shouldn't the NBA be a part of selecting? Oh, okay, this person has 15 years. That person, that judge as Court of Appeal judge, this thing she did, this thing he did, it was not necessarily good, and I don't think it should be. I mean, should they not have a say in the nomination process? Should they not be a part of the commission that does the nomination?
At present, the Federal Judicial Service Commission has that responsibility as a constitutional responsibility, and it's established for that purpose, sourcing for persons for that purpose.
All right.
In the Federal Judicial Service Commission, yes, you also have lawyers. You have lawyers, even though just like the NJC, my criticism has been, if you are going to have 10 lawyers in any of those bodies, allow the NBA to nominate those 10.
Okay.
It shouldn't be that the CJN will pick any 10 persons alike from the body. So if you allow the NBA as a body, a professional body, to put forward its best into those bodies, you can be sure that their participation will be felt in these processes. If those persons, the members of NBA who are on those commissions, are persons nominated by the professional body.
Okay.
You will find NBA better represented.
Okay, so talking about the people now, the public, I believe Nigerians are very much politically aware, and the courts lately have been very much the decider or deciding factor as to who becomes what. I mean, we are getting to hear rulings in Kano, in Bauchi, in Zamfara. Plateau is expecting, Rivers is expecting. Of course, we've had the presidential ruling as well. So the court is becoming the final or the deciding factor these days. So Nigerians are somewhat bothered about it. Don't you think Nigerians should have a role, apart from complaining?
Appointment of judges is more of an administrative or executive action. So I'm afraid if you reconstruct it for it to be something that the public will have to participate in, it may become a bit too amorphous. The process may become a bit more incumbent. I think that it will appear to be all right if you limit participation to the professional body and the regulatory bodies.
All right.
And then members of the public should be at liberty to raise any issues they know. Anything they know will render a nominee not qualified to be appointed. They should reserve the right to do that. And that right is available at the moment once nominations are made.
All right.
Anybody who has anything against any of them can petition the NJC concerning that nominee.
All right. Okay. There is the final question I want to ask because we're out of time, and that question has got to do with ideologies. In the United States, they can say, "Oh, this person is a conservative judge," or that other person is the opposite. In Nigeria, do we have those ideologies? Do we have judges that stand for a principle or something like that?
My brother, I'd like to answer that question by asking you, do you know the ideologies we have in Nigerian politics? Because ideologies you can point to that are the prevailing ideologies in Nigerian political space. I'm afraid not. If we had, then we can talk of men who have over time established themselves in the practice of their profession and in their public speaking and public action as men who adhere to or who support one ideology over the other. It is difficult to tell whether we are at the left, at the right, at the middle left of the center or right of the center. In this country right now, it's difficult to categorize So if you do not have prevailing ideologies in the country, how can we find it among persons who are to be appointed?
But you see, that's where the problem is. That's why maybe I may be amongst the people who would have thought lecturers, professors, academia would have been allowed to be part of the judges, the bench, because they would be able to have ideologies based on their years of research.
The federal government is at liberty. The way the law is couched right now, they are at liberty to appoint persons from outside the judiciary. We said that earlier in the first question you asked.
Yes.
The law gives them that liberty. Perhaps they are not thinking of it because in their field of play there are no ideologies. So perhaps they are imagining that there are no ideologies anywhere.
Okay. All right. So what would be your final words? 22 names. We've got 2 from the south, one from Bayelsa, one from Rivers. I think we've got about 4 from the southeast. And if my guess, or rather, is it 6? We've got 2 Imo, 2 Abia, 1 Ebonyi, 1 Enugu. So we've got 6 from the southeast. And we've got the rest from the other parts of the northern
of the country.
Yeah, northern region of the country. So what's your take on that?
My final word would be, do not close your eyes over who is being appointed to sensitive positions. So let's look at these names, and anybody who has any reason why any of them is not a suitable person to make the Supreme Court justices list, that person should speak up. Because at the end of the day, our collective interest as a society is at stake. So I will ask all Nigerians to be patriotic and say whatever they know concerning those persons. So that the person who shouldn't be there will not be there.
All right.
That is the best we can do right now.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Ritchard Nwokocha, Professor of Law, Rivers State University. Maybe I should ask you, if you're called, would you want to be our Supreme Court judge or justice? I mean, you've served over 15 years. You're a professor of law. Can you hear me? Hello? The network is terrible now. Okay. All right. I was going to ask a final question. We're out of time. We've got a commercial coming up. But after the commercial, the 6 p.m. bulletin. And after the 6 p.m. bulletin, open season will come upon us. And we'll talk for development some more. Please do stay tuned.
Joined forces with Maria.
And then so the aviation workers also want to join the strike.
Your access to all the top stories and more.
Let's talk.
You are tuned in to 92.3 Nigeria Info.
It's 6 o'clock.